Hello, I'm Kelly Wilde, tranny tragic from Barnet in Hertfordshire, about 10 miles north of London. Right now I'm in lockdown thanks to COVID-19. I'm in Sydney, Australia. And let's face it, if you're going to be in lockdown, you're better off in Sydney, Australia or somewhere in New Zealand than anywhere else you can think of. Suits me fine. Now, this is a bit of a departure from my usual videos. Let's call this number 3 in my series 101 Reasons to Dump the Bible. Little bit different format this time, brought about by the news here in Australia. Australia has a notorious sportsman who shall remain nameless because I don't want this video to be deleted because of libel or something like that. Let's call this famous notorious sportsman Judas, named after Judas who betrayed Jesus, but we'll change the name a little bit and make him Judas. Now, Judas considers himself to be a devout Christian. In actual fact, he's anything but. He breaks the rules over and over and over again. First of all, he's got a huge tattoo on his shoulder and arm. What does God say about tattoos or skin markings of any kind? Strictly verboten. To God they are obscenities. Yet this idiot, this Judas sportsman, goes ahead and says, "Fuck you, God, I'm going to get a huge tattoo no matter what you say." That's the first thing. What else about this bloke? Well, he's a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. He drives Ferraris and Lamborghinis and he's worth a fortune. What does Jesus have to say about rich men? Jesus says it is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. So this imbecile, this so-called Christian, he's doomed. He's going to burn in hell. He's accusing homosexuals, adulterers and liars and all sorts of different people. He's accusing them of disobeying God and disobeying Jesus and warning them that they're going to burn in hell. After you, mate, he's going to be the first to burn in hell. What else does he do, or what else doesn't he do? Well, if he cares to read the Sermon on the Mount, everybody considers that to be the most important sermon Jesus ever gave, he will discover quite a horrible verse further down. See, most people only read the first line or two. Blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the pure in heart, things like that. They don't bother reading the whole thing. Were he to bother reading the whole thing, he would discover Jesus saying, any man who's ever looked at a woman with lust, it is a sin for a man to look at a woman with lust. It is better for a man to gouge out one eye and hack off one hand than look at a woman with lust. Now, let's just think about that. It's a gruesome thing to say. Pretty sick if you ask me. But Jesus obviously believed that, or he wouldn't have said it. Now, let's think about this. This guy claims to be 100% heterosexual, and he considers himself to be a normal, healthy male. So when he masturbates, and let's face it, there hasn't been a man on the planet ever who hasn't masturbated at some time in his life, what does he fantasize about? Let's see now. Oh, perhaps he fantasizes about Ferraris or Lamborghinis. Or is it just possible that he fantasizes about a sexy woman? Ha ha ha! Gotcha! This man is an absolute 100% hypocrite, because there's never been a man on this planet ever, from Adam onwards, who hasn't at some time or other fantasized about a sexy woman, unless he's gay. If he's gay, different matter. He'd fantasize about sexy men or sexy boys if he's a Catholic priest. But he claims to be heterosexual. So, whether he masturbates these days or not is beside the point. He has, as a young man, masturbated. He has, as a young man, fantasized about women. And yet he's got two hands. He's got two eyes. Jesus suggests gouging out one eye, hacking off one hand. He's totally ignored what Jesus has to say. In fact, later on in the Bible, Jesus talks about, for heaven's sake, castrating yourself. There be eunuchs, for heaven's sake, who castrate themselves. That's optional. He doesn't insist on that. That's up. You have a choice there. You can cut your balls off or not. Up to you. But as for the gouging out the eye and hacking off one hand, anyone who's ever fantasized about a sexy woman, you're a goner. You're going to burn in hell along with atheists like me. Ha ha! See you there, Judas. You'll get there before me, because you're a rich man, whereas I'm not. What else did Jesus have to say in the Sermon on the Mount? Well, he said, don't pray in the synagogue like the hypocrites do. Well, of course, in those days, as a Jew, of course, Jesus would have Jesus would have recognised synagogues, not churches. There was no such thing as a church until a couple of hundred years later. The part in the Bible where he talks about Peter being the rock upon which he will build his church. That is what is known as an interpolation. That was added to the New Testament 200 to 300 years later. But that's beside the point. There was no such word as church. So he's talking about synagogue. He's talking about hypocrites who like to be seen in public praying. And he says, no, do not pray in public. Lock yourself in a closet. Pray to the Lord thy God in your closet, in private, in secret. This bloke, this Judas bloke, not only prays in public, he runs his own church. He encourages everybody to pray in public. I would say this man is doomed, doomed, doomed. He's going to burn in hell quicker and faster than any of us, because he's a #1 hypocrite. Everything he does is against God and against Jesus. Jesus even forbids preaching. How about that? And yet everything this bloke does when he's not kicking a ball around is preach, preach, preach. And let's see, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. That's right. Later on in the Bible, I'll put it up here somewhere so you can see exactly where, Jesus says something that makes sense to me. Most of what he says is absolute bullshit, but he is Jesus after all. And this moron, this Judas, claims to worship Jesus. But here's something that does make sense to me. Jesus says, don't worry about the speck in other people's eyes. Concern yourself with the log in your own eye. In other words, don't worry about the teeny little mistakes other people make. Concern yourself with the massive mistakes you make. And this guy should take note of that, because this guy, all he's looking for is specks in other people's eyes. Oh dear, you did this and you did that. When he is the biggest hypocrite in Australia, the #1 biggest hypocrite in the whole of Australia. He has logs in his eyes. Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. I don't want this to go on too long. But my advice to Judas is get down on your knees now in your closet and pray to God, pray to Jesus for forgiveness, because you are such a loathsome, disgusting, rotten hypocrite. Now, as I always end my videos, I'll keep them short. If you watch my videos, here's my promise to you. You will learn about the Bible. You will learn all the bits that the churches deliberately hide from you because they're embarrassed about some of the bits like I've just mentioned today, and they don't want you to know about them. Watch my videos. There'll be a new one every week, and you will know more about the Bible than any Christian you're ever likely to meet. Certainly more than old Judas. So, stay tuned.